If you are a parent and you have a student that's about to start having to pay on their student loans, or if you are the borrower and your student loan payments are about to begin, you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed because there's a lot of moving pieces with student loans and repayments and understanding what all goes into it. So because of the changing rules recently, there's a lot up in the air with the changing administration, changes with loan servicers, new repayment options. It's really easy to miss something that's important, and so that's why we are recording today's video. So while my goal is to help you or your family avoid student loans, we still need to face the reality that some families have to borrow, and we want to make sure that you are prepared. So in this video, we are going to walk through exactly how to prepare for student loan repayment, what to do before that first bill arrives, what to expect, how to make sure that your student doesn't pay more than they have to or less to where they might get in trouble. So we'll cover everything that you need to know. Now make sure you hit subscribe, because if your student hasn't crossed the graduation stage at college, there's still opportunities to reduce what we have to borrow. So every week we have a new strategy to help you work towards a debt-free degree. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, and this is what we do. We help families overwhelmed by the cost of college secure scholarships to avoid or to minimize what they have to borrow in student loans. Now, if you're watching this, then it sounds like someone has signed the dotted line for student loans, but again, like I said, it's never too late. So if you have more students that have not crossed that graduation stage, or if there are still semesters ahead, then there could be opportunities. So again, make sure you hit subscribe. Now, just a quick note, we are familiar with U.S. citizens and permanent residence rules. We are not familiar with how student loan repayment or student loans work for international students. So this is for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. Let's dive in. Now, before I begin, I do want to say that the most important step for student loan repayment is to avoid it. So I really recommend, again, pursuing any opportunities to avoid what we have to borrow or minimize what we have to borrow. And so if you're a parent watching this, if your student still has any semesters left, they can secure debt-free money. And so I have a free training. If you go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free webinar, I have a 1 hour and 20-minute training that will show you how to find scholarships that are legitimate and less competitive. So make sure you check that out. You can go to the link on the screen, or you can find the link in the description. All right, now say we had to borrow money, let's get into paying it back. So step one really is all about figuring out what is owed. And this, you would be surprised how many families and students have been surprised. We have met students that they just accepted a full financial aid award and it actually entailed debt. They didn't even realize it. One student in particular comes to mind, borrowed $12,000 without even realizing it. So the first step is crucial. It's really getting that full picture of what your student has borrowed or what you've borrowed if you're the student watching this. So what we want to do is log into studentaid.gov, and in there we can see every federal loan, the total balances, the interest rates, what service managers are responsible for their account. If you guys have borrowed private loans, they would not show up here. So make sure that you check with any lenders that have been used to provide student loans. So we want to know exactly how much we borrowed from every single source. We want to know the logins. We want to document everything in one place. Now, I have a YouTube video all about calculating interest on student loans, so you can find that video here. We will also link to it in the description below. We also have a whole playlist all about student loans, so you can check that out if you want to see if any other videos will be helpful. So again, it's all about, we want to find out, what did we borrow? From whom? How do we log in to see it? And what is the interest that we're going to be paying on this money? This is so important also because it might motivate your student to move a little faster on those payments, because it can be really surprising and shocking. All right, the next step is to confirm the loan servicer and update any kind of contact information. So over the past few years, several loan officers, they've changed or exited the system. And so this could mean that your student's student loan has been transferred to someone else, maybe a new company, without them even realizing it. So make sure that you confirm the student loan servicer, again, at studentaid.gov for government loans, update any kind of contact information, make sure all of that is accurate and up to date. And of course, any private loans should be serviced by that company unless we've done some kind of refinancing. But again, even there, we want to make sure that we have all the information up to date. So our personal information, our email, our address, so that way we don't miss any kind of alerts or notifications or communication, especially around repayment. Okay, let's get into step 3, and that is understanding the grace period. So most federal student loans, they come with a 6-month grace period after graduation before payments are required, or after dropping out if a student did not complete the degree. So we want to use that time wisely, right? Encourage our student to review any kind of repayment options, which we will cover those next. Maybe putting money to the side so that they have a small emergency fund to cushion any kind of monthly expenses, setting up any automatic payments so that once they begin, you just have the account there, it's ready to go. So these are some things that we can do during that 6 months so that the month that the first bill is due, we're not then trying to figure this out. And again, if they have private loans, check whether there is a grace period. Some require payment immediately after graduation, but many do offer that grace period as well. Then we get into step 4, and that's choosing the right repayment plan. So federal loans offer several repayment options, and choosing the right one really can make a huge difference, especially depending on what kind of salary your student is receiving after college. So there's a standard repayment plan where it's fixed payments and it's the best for those who can afford it so that we're not accumulating interest or extending how long we're going to be paying on this. There's an income-driven repayment plan, IDR. These payments are based on income and family size, and these are great for students, again, that might not be making that much. The one thing I want to say with this is we want to be careful because when we redistribute what our payments are, that doesn't mean that the amount that we have to pay back is less or anything like that. It actually just extends how long we're paying. So we want to make sure we understand how much extra interest we're going to be accumulating. The next one is the SAVE plan, or formerly it was Repay, REPAYE. It's the new version of the income-driven repayment that can lower payments even further. Now, there are some big changes coming to the student loan program next year, which may make some of these options no longer available. It's actually really up in the air right now. But for example, they launched a repayment assistance plan, or RAP, R-A-P, in the Big Beautiful Act signed by President Donald Trump in July of 2025, and it's expected to occur July 2026. But the goal is to lower monthly payment plans. However, it does look like it's going to be more expensive than SAVE was for many borrowers. So borrowers who take out any new federal student loans or consolidate their student loans on or after July 1st of 2026, they're going to lose access to the legacy repayment plans I mentioned earlier that are being phased out from under the One Big Beautiful Bill. So this is important to understand. So for those that are already in college, they are basically grandfathered in, and then any borrowing starting after that July 2026 period is going to start with these new rules. Okay, so let's get into step 5, and that is setting up the AutoPay and a budget. So setting up automatic payments, it can sometimes earn a small interest rate discount, and it ensures that we never miss a payment, which is so important. So we want to make sure our student adds that monthly payment into their budget now, even if they're still in that grace period. That way, they're already used to managing that expense, and that way it's not a surprise or they're short once repayment actually begins. So that's where it ties into a budget, right? Looking at how much we're making, how much we're going to owe, and making sure that we have that money allotted once they kick in. And then that brings me to step 6, which is knowing options for trouble or for lower income situations. So for students that cannot afford payments at first, there are ways to stay in good standing. So there's things like the income-driven repayment plans like I talked about. There's also sometimes deferment or forbearance that pauses payments temporarily if needed. So we want to reach out to whoever it is that we borrowed the money from and find out what options we have if we're finding we cannot make those student loan payments. But as a parent, if you're watching this, you want to remind them that interest often it accrues even during those pauses. So we're pausing the payments, but we're not pausing that accumulation of interest. And this is where you hear stories of people that have made payments for decades and yet still owe what they borrowed. So it can be a slippery slope. So we have to be careful. It's ideally used for short term, not for long term. And again, there are huge changes coming in the future, so make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date, because we will always bring those changes to our families as soon as we are finding out about them, so that you can make informed decisions. And so then that leads me to really my last step, and that is keeping records and staying organized and staying on top of this. So encouraging your student, again, to keep any copies of their payments that they're making, any copies of login information, what they borrowed, any statements. We want to make sure we know, because again, finding out about people who say, hey, I've been paying on this for 20 years and yet I still owe what I initially borrowed, we sometimes need to dig into that. And so we want to make sure we're keeping records, staying organized, tracking everything, and this will help if we do find issues later on down the road, or if, say, income repayment plans change again and we need to figure out what our new ones look like, and so on. So comment below, what steps are you and your student taking to alleviate or prepare for student loan repayments? And do you still have time to try and minimize what needs to be borrowed in the future? And if so, say yes, and we can share some playlists with you as well. So just to recap, preparing for student loan repayment, it's not that sexy of a topic. It's not that fun, but it doesn't have to be stressful if we know we can be proactive and we know what we're looking at, where to find it. So hopefully this gave you a clear expectation of what we need to do. So looking at that budget, looking at where we borrowed, looking at the amounts we borrowed, finding all the logins, setting up those automatic payments, planning that budget around those automatic payments. All of these things will help your student stay ahead of them, maybe even put some extra towards them so they can knock them out. The faster we do it, the cheaper they'll be, so that we're not just accruing interest for years and years and years. All right. So that said, again, if your student has not crossed the stage of graduation at college, then we've got strategies for you. So make sure you hit subscribe, because every week we have a new strategy for families to work towards reducing what they need in student loan debt. All right. I'll see you in the next video.